Hello, jewelry lover. My name is Bella Naiman, and I'm the founder of New York City Jewelry Week. Welcome to this virtual program, part of NYCJW 24. The theme for the seventh annual edition is Wander and Wander, and it reflects the multifaceted nature of jewelry as both art and personal expression. Wander captures the awe-inspiring craftsmanship behind each piece, the dazzling, delicate, or bold details that turn your head in admiration. Wander invites you to explore the wonderful and wild creative journeys behind the jewelry. It's not just about the finished piece, it's about the adventure it took to get there. Designers experiment, push boundaries, and play with ideas and materials. And this year, New York City Jewelry Week takes participants to see it all unfold. Every necklace, ring, and bracelet is a passport to a new world where innovation reigns and imagination knows no limits. So we hope that these programs will take you on that journey and are your passport as well. Sit back, enjoy, and while these are not live, we welcome your comments. So please don't hesitate to drop us a line, whether it's email or Instagram, or even get in touch with some of the incredible curators, artists, writers that have really worked very hard to bring you this program. So thanks very much. And we also hope to see you out in New York. Bye.
Welcome to all our students from all the universities who have decided to and chose to be here today. Thank you. I think this is going to be a really great and exciting program. Lots to learn, and I want to welcome Jewelers Mutual and thank them for putting this together, as well as New York City Jewelry Week. Bella was here a moment ago. As well, and to thank Bella, who also coordinated, and Chantel from Jewelry Week, who coordinated with Jewelers Mutual to bring this program to you. I think we've got lots to talk about today. So thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Mark. And again, thank you so much. It's great to have you here and our panel. Thank you.
Thanks.
And when we have questions, I'll be the microphone runner.
Okay, great.
Oh, you want to use this? Oh, yeah, sure.
Good morning, everyone. Okay. Welcome, and yes, thank you. Thank you to New York City Jewelry Week for giving us this opportunity. My name is Mark Smelzer. I have the title of Vice President of Content at a jewelry insurance company. So I'm sort of an oddball there. I'm not really in insurance, but it's my job, along with Emily, who's going to be our moderator today. We are the content team. It's our job to come up with different, interesting ways to create content, opportunities like this one, to further the jewelry industry. So Jewelers Mutual Group is 111 years old. It started as a company to insure jewelry stores because no one would insure jewelry stores because they always had open flames and fires, and so they had to create their own insurance company. It's now a huge, massive organization, but it's an organization that gives back in many, many ways. It really gives back to the industry. So we sponsored this event today because our North Star, which is, business speak for the goal that you all aspire to at a company, our North Star is elevating the love of jewelry. And in any way that we can be present to help further the jewelry industry along, Jewelers Mutual loves to do that. So we have an incredible panel here today. Jennifer's on her way. She'll be about 10 minutes more. Emily and I shot high to get this panel here. So we're thrilled, the panelists that are participating. And really, I guess if I were to give one piece of advice, it's just to kind of keep an open mind, because all of us have experienced, and I'm sure all of you will as well, twists and turns in your careers that you never saw coming. You never know where you may end up with this as your background. So we have folks from 4 different aspects of the industry to talk to you about what they do, and we hope it's really helpful for you. So Emily Vesland.
Hi, we're so excited that you guys chose to spend this time with us. We really do have an incredible panel here. One shy, but she'll be coming. And we did really aim high with these folks. These are some really bedrock, incredible people working for some incredible companies. And on that note, I will have them please introduce themselves. Let's start with Brecken.
Good morning. I'm Brecken Branstrator, and I'm the editor-in-chief of the GemGuide, which is a bi-monthly market pricing and trends publication.
Mary.
My name is Mary Enright, and I have two jobs. One is paid. I'm the workshop manager at Van Cleef & Arpels, and my second unpaid passion is I'm the incoming president of the Women's Jewelry Association New York Metro chapter.
The workshop manager for Van Cleef & Arpels. Just want to say that again. David.
Hello, I'm David. I have one job, and it is paid. I am the Chief Operating Officer of James Allen and Blue Now. Both of those are retailers mainly in the bridal industry, so engagement rings, wedding bands, but we would be able to make any type of jewelry for you. And I run the operations, which also means manufacturing, designs, merchandising, good stuff.
Blue Nile and James Allen. So these are some incredible people up here. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Let's start. Oh, we got a mic problem? Say it loud. Let's start with just sort of the basics, which I think are not so basic when it comes to the three of you. Can you guys, Brecken, can we start with you? Can you please share how you came to jewelry as a career and why you've stayed?
Sure. So I came by it kind of roundabout. I studied journalism in college, obviously, but when I graduated in 2010, there were not many journalism jobs to be had, and what I found was that trade writing was an incredible opportunity that nobody had told me about. So my first full-time job out of college was actually writing about alcohol, and I don't need to tell this room, the alcohol trade, and I don't need to tell this room, it was so much fun. I spent 2 years going to all the events I could, gathering all the free samples I could, but it was creatively just not what I was looking for, so I spent some time there. And when I was ready to make this switch, it just happened that on a journalism job board, a trade publication called National Jeweler was looking for a colored stone editor. And it may not make sense, but really when it comes to journalism, as you know, Emily, it's much more about your writing skill than what you're writing about. So you know how to write, and then you learn the rest of it. So because I had been a trade writer before, they hired me for those skills, print and digital, and then it was birth by fire for the rest. So I spent 9 years at National Jeweler as their colored stone editor. And then in 2020, I made the choice right before the pandemic, before I knew what the world was going to be, to start my graduate gemology diploma at GIA, and had years to do nothing but study. And then from there, I just decided that gems was it. That's what I wanted to do. So 2 years ago, I also started a new job at the GemGuide, and I'm farther into what I consider GemGuide to be somewhere between a gemology journal and a trade publication. We're sort of right in that niche. And they hired me to sort of expand the content. They have, for you, if you guys aren't familiar with it, we have about 60 pages of wholesale pricing for stones. So about 10 of those are for diamonds. We don't really focus on that. RapNet does that, as we probably all know. And we do about 50 pages of colored stone pricing for wholesale per carat. So that's really what we're known for. And they hired me to expand on the editorial content as well. So that's what I've been working for the past 2 years.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I ran into you at a party after COVID, and you were like, I'm a gemologist now.
Yeah, surprise.
Which was incredible. Yeah. And I love the journey, because shout out to trade journalism. If anybody's interested in writing, trade journalism is a great sort of starting point and haven for journalists these days in sort of topsy-turvy times. So that's,
I thought, I went to school thinking I'm going to work at Elle one day. I'm going to be in the towers in New York. And then they barely have full-time staffers now. Yeah. So I go back to my school all the time and say, let's talk about trade writing, because it's a wonderful opportunity and a little bit of, job security in a way you wouldn't expect, because now I have this knowledge that I can never leave the industry, because what am I going to do with whatever's in here right now?
Exactly. So. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Mary, your story starts in Ireland.
Yes, and this is my second career. So in Ireland, I could probably be most of your parents. So in the, I'm going to say 90s, when I was in high school, I went to a convent, and we were giving very limited career options. There were 3. teaching, hairdressing, or nursing. So I chose teaching because teachers got 3 months paid vacation, so it seemed like the most attractive. And when I was studying, I did a year abroad, and I studied in Colorado, and part of one of the elective subjects I took was sculpture. And I started working with copper, and I was just absolutely hooked. But I had to come home and finish my degree, and I taught for a couple of years. And I would say that I've probably taken 3 big leaps of faith in changing my career path. The first one was walking away from a very secure career, and I went back to college to train as a goldsmith. And the stars all really aligned, and I got an apprenticeship program. And in Ireland, we have one program, and they take 12 students every 2 years. So I do feel very blessed that I had that opportunity. After a few years, I opened up my own retail store and workshop, and I thought, this was it. This was, I was going to be happy in my little cottage by the sea, which all sounds very romantic. But and for most of the time, 99% of the time, I will try and lure everyone I can into the jewelry industry because I love it. It is one of the most rewarding careers I feel in the entire planet because it's so varied. But it reminded me at some point to say that it's not all positive. But the positives certainly outweigh the negatives. And if anyone wants to talk about being in business for yourself, I can go into that during Q&A because it's very romanticized, but it can also be difficult.
Challenging.
Challenging, yeah. And this is about persistence and luck. I never give up hope on anything, and I'd always wanted to live in New York. So I spent 19 years applying for a green card lottery, and as soon as I won it, I packed my bags, closed my store, and it was a big leap of faith to move. Even opening my store was probably my second leap of faith because the entire economic crisis happened in 2008, and that's when I decided it was the perfect time to go into business, when nobody had any money. But I was in a really good position to haggle for like a really good rent deal on a store, so I figured if I don't try it, I'll always regret not doing it. And then the third one was moving to the United States. So I arrived here with 2 suitcases and a pocket full of hopes and dreams, and I landed. My first job was working in the jewelry design and innovation workshop at Tiffany's, which they primarily focused on product development, and it was where I got exposed to new types of manufacturing and technologies, and it really ignited my curiosity about the industry because it's so vast here. And I had a 3-year contract with them, and as that was coming to an end, a friend of mine lectures at GIA, and she reached out to me to say they were looking for someone to teach jewelry design and CAD, and I had a background in CAD engineering. So I took that, and then my current role, Van Cleef & Arpels never open up workshop jobs because once people start working there, they tend not to leave. But the company started growing. And one thing I would encourage everyone is to remain curious about the industry. And while I wasn't job hunting, I was still actively on LinkedIn and receiving job notifications just because I want to know what's happening in the industry. And a job popped up, and it was senior manager of the jewelry workshop. And as
Can
much
you talk
as
a little bit, Mary? You and I talked before, and you said kind of the first few days there, you walked in, and it was kind of an all-male workshop.
Nobody said that the person coming in to kind of oversee the technicians was a woman. So I think when I walked in, not when I had my own store, but when I moved here, I lived in Doc Martens for about 20 years of my career. I don't know what it is about New York, but I've been in high heels since I arrived. So I walked in a pair of stilettos, like a really trendy blazer, and I had all these kind of older jewelers looking, going, oh, no.
Right. She knows nothing.
We're not sure we like this.
Right.
But my technical knowledge and my bench skills kind of reinforced the concept that, yes, a woman can do this. And I did get pushback in the beginning, and I think that's normal in any work environment because people want to have that reassurance that you can support them. But now I don't think I think they'd cry if I left.
You've won them over.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
great.
I won them up. The Irish charm helps. Having an accent goes a long way sometimes too, I think.
Right. David, your background is also international. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so having an accent, I guess, is a thing. So if you don't understand what I say, just I'll blame the accent. I was completely clear. You're to blame because you don't understand people with accents. I completely stumbled into the industry. I like to joke that I'm by mistake in the industry, but it's the best mistake I've ever made, maybe. So I came to New York, went to NYU to study economics because I had no clue what I wanted to study. And
Seems safe.
Yeah, you're like, let's do something safe. And then by the time you finish, you're supposed to know what you want to do. And I still had no clue. I loved school, and I loved NYU, and I loved studying, but I had no clue what I wanted to do for work. So just like someone with an economics degree that doesn't know what they want to do, I went in finance. I was in New York, I went into finance, and I worked for a fund, an hedge fund, and whatever money they gave me to manage, which wasn't much, I was able to lose very quickly. I was just the worst trader in the history of Wall Street. So I had a very short-lived career in finance, and I schlepped myself around, and needing a visa is kind of a scary thing when you're in New York and you're a foreigner. So there was this company called GemStone that was growing faster than it could ever imagine. They were taking over the world, where customers were more and more willing to purchase the most important jewelry piece of their life at that moment, which is an engagement ring. At that moment in life, that's probably the most important thing you purchased, maybe even more than your car. You didn't buy your house yet, probably, and so it's a super significant moment in your life. It's a scary moment, and James Allen had this approach, like, we're online, and we're cool, and we're chill, and we're funny, and you can see our marketing is really much about that, and we brought it online, and they were growing really well and really fast. But like many companies growing too fast, there was no control. It was just, but it was great.
Yeah,
it was amazing, right? And I'm going to be in my 10th year next year in our company. And I came in like, David, there's too many numbers, and we don't know how to crunch them. You supposedly know number, and I say, well, I don't know anymore. I just lost quite a lot of money, but supposedly I know numbers. And this is how I got in. And I started looking at manufacturing and supply chain and pricing and costing, and I started learning about everything. That was because there were no structures. I was able to touch so many subjects within the company, and the company kept growing despite me joining. Incredible, and that's it. Today we sell around $600 million a year of jewelry and engagement rings and wedding bands, and it's a huge and massive thing. I'm super proud, and it is the best mistake I've ever made, because this industry is truly incredible. And yes, I could have stumbled into selling Diet Cokes, right? And I would have been just fine, but there's something super special about knowing that every time we ship a box to someone, there's an emotion on the other side. It's a big emotion, and there's few industries that can say that the product that they sell to you, that they ship to you, is guaranteed, if you're doing it well, to provide an incredible emotion on the other side. And that's a big responsibility, by the way. As a retailer, you should never lose track of that. And I can find myself faulting in that a little bit from time to time. You want to get to your numbers, and you want to get there, and you get the pressure of an industry. And I think this is what's great about this panel today. It's because I think a lot of you guys didn't taste yet the industry, and you're very much in the deep emotional bound to the product itself, to design, to craftsmanship, and this is tremendous, and never lose track of it. But you're going to see that some of my advice today is about learn the other side of that industry, because the industry means that there's money, and there's sales, and there's customers, and there's marketing, and there's storytelling, and this is great, and you need to learn about that. But don't lose track of who you are today in this room as you're about to graduate. I understand you're juniors and seniors. There's an emotion in our industry, and it's very important not to forget that the product that we sell is different than other industries, right, in that sense.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That was wonderful. And I'm going to stick with you for a minute, David. First of all, did they give you a plaque for worst stock broker? Do you have that plaque in your office?
My wife reminds me every day.
And secondly, let's sort of dive right into the heart of the matter, which is sort of jewelry opportunities, career opportunities within this industry. And you work for such a huge company, such an innovative company. Do you guys remember the James Allen ads when they first started popping up and like a guy's head comes out of a shoe and like sort of the humorous messaging that they were doing? It was so new and fresh feeling. And you said to me when we did the pre-call, you know, design students, it's incredible. They're getting this incredible sort of baseline education. The one thing that you said you would say, and I would love for you to expand on this after I say it, is they have to learn to at least tolerate the business side. So tell me a little bit more about that. Tell the students a little more about, you know, tolerating that business side and then maybe even sort of embracing it and growing to like it, because it can be incredibly satisfying and obviously can set you up financially more, you know, solidly.
Yeah.
Tell us.
Sure. So I had to do the exact opposite direction of that track, by the way, right? I was completely in the world of economics and finance, and then I'm coming into a jewelry company, and I had to learn what it means to be part of a jewelry industry, to be part of that emotion that I mentioned before. But I'm assuming that this is a track that goes both ways. We need to meet in the middle, and your background is the exact opposite of mine, probably. You're coming from design and craftsmanship, and you want to have your say and your personality in what you make, and that's tremendous. But if you're not willing to learn about what's going on the other side of that track, you'll have a hard time sticking, because this is an industry. Don't ignore it. Embrace it. It can be actually really fun also. You may not think that today, but if you talk to a marketing team, they're supposed to bring your story, because the jewelry that you make is part of your story. You as a person is a part of that story as well, right? They will help you bring it out. If you understand that a production team and the workshop team, there are deadlines. So inevitable, whether you are the head of the workshop at Van Cleef or you're the head of the workshop of James Allen Brunel, who's, by the way, is also in the room today, you need to meet deadlines, right? And you need to understand that there's a manager above you that needs to understand, you need to understand their expectations out of you. And that's something that is tremendously important. Your education is not done when you get out of Pratt, just to be clear. You can learn a lot at Pratt, just like my education wasn't done when I got out of NYU. You need to learn the people around you because they can help you. Because together you can get much further than you can get on your own. And that's the beauty of our industry, is that I believe, just like in every industry, but specifically, I've seen it myself, this is an industry where you can find tremendous partners that will be willing to tolerate you as a designer who wants to only be about their pieces and be at their bench and work with copper and jewelry and gold and diamonds, but will also be willing to teach you some of the things as long as you show the willingness to do that. And that's why I use the word tolerating. It can be...
I think it's perfect. Yeah.
I think it can be... I think the unknown, or something that you know, you can hear about a lot of things about big companies, etc. And I work in a big company, but every company is made of people, and you can find 100% big companies, smaller companies, content creators that will be just amazing, and you'll find the worst as well. So be smart about what you choose. Trust your guts about people, because eventually, whether it's big or small or medium, people will make your career alongside you. People will connect you to others. People will force you to come to Pratt Institute on a rainy day in November.
That's true.
When Black Friday is literally next week. And that's okay.
Yes, yes.
Right? But Mark owes me one, so... But my point is that I implore you, for your own career, to find a little bit of passion for the people around you will need to do to complement you and to complement your work.
Yes, totally. Yeah. Jennifer Gandia is here. Thank you so much for being in Uber for 3 hours or whatever it was. I mean, oh my gosh.
I'll tell you, it was much easier to slip into class late when I was in college.
So true.
I never went to the front of the room.
Oh my
for
gosh.
Sure.
And I'm like, come on up. Before we leave you, David, what are the positions you have trouble finding people for at James Allen? Like what are the most sort of like almost uncompetitive positions?
Okay, so there's the obvious one, finding experienced jewelers, and when we say experience, you can be experienced at 16 years old if you're
Bench
just,
jewelers.
yeah, like
Okay.
experience means good. That's what we mean when we say experience. We don't mean age. We just mean good. You can be 5 years in the industry and you're tremendous setters because you just have an amazing talent for it, right? And I can give you an example of a nail technician that never touched a piece of jewelry in her life, and when she joined us, within a year, she was one of the best setters in our workshop because she just had the hands for that. Just imagine if you were to get your nails done by her before that. But my point is, experience doesn't necessarily mean time, but being an amazing craftsman is hard to come by. Most of the time, there will be a correlation between the time that you spent or the amount of items that you touched, the amount of jewelry that you fixed. Being a repair jeweler, by the way, is the most difficult thing because being a repair jeweler just means that you fix the, I'm going to stay polite today. It means that you fix the problems that other created, right? Other before you in the workshop created, but you have the ability to, those are the most difficult things. So craftsmen, jewelers, setters, an amazing polisher is not the same as an entry-level polisher, definitely not. So those are the obvious in the workshop environment. But the truth is that every job is hard to come by because every company will have a personality, maybe even a team within a company will have a certain personality, and you need to find people that fit you and you fit them and you'll complement each other. It's people meeting people at the end of the day. So every job is hard to come by because you'll need to find someone and you'll need to find a team and someone that will be willing to tolerate your personality
Totally.
also.
Thank you. Mary, where do you see sort of the white spaces in your workshop environment? What are you looking for, and what is it kind of hard for you to find?
I feel like I could just go home because David is covering everything that I would like to share as well. I feel like we might have different sizes of workshops, but I think the pain points are probably the same. Definitely jewelers, setters, polishers. I think there's been a really nice shift in the recent past to encourage people into trades and back into craft, because it's going to become a dying craft if we don't bring new energy and new hands and new ideas and new innovations into it. And I would also like to reiterate that it's not necessarily the length of time you've been at the bench, because I've met bench jewelers who've been on the bench for 40 years, and I have jewelers who, even when I had my own store, who walked in right out of college and immediately they just had this innate ability to understand what they were doing at the bench, because it's like art, science, engineering, architecture. You have to have such a really broad understanding, but definitely, and I think industry-wide, craftspeople is
Craftspeople.
yeah.
Why do you think, Mary, that's been flagging as something that people study?
I feel
Technology
that,
at all?
I think in terms of craftspeople, when like society changes, and certainly when I left school in Ireland, and it's similar in a lot of cultures in around the same timeline, that push the opportunity for education and college and more like traditional pursuits, because there's security, and a lot of countries were going through recessions. My dad is a carpenter, and I was in Ireland, his generation, nobody went to college. And they really pushed for me to go because I had the opportunity. And job security is a big thing, because as a craftsperson, and especially in Ireland, your only real option if you wanted to create your own work was to have your own store or workshop. And it's the insecurity of income that can be difficult to navigate. And to David's point, you have to have an understanding of how business operates as well, even if it's not your jam. But you have to learn it, you have to understand it. And I think here in the States as well, the big push was towards academia outside of the creative part of
Away from the
academics.
hands-on.
Yeah.
How many of you all work on the bench and are sort of training to be bench jewelers? You for sure. Just a couple. What does everybody else study within jewelry? Anyone? More like theory? Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay. Art and illustration.
We are a design and making program.
Yes.
All our students get sugar based. Carrie, you can probably for you too, right, baby?
I was hoping everybody would raise their hand and I'd go, well, here's the next generation. But it didn't work out. They're being
Yes,
shy. No,
we
I get
need
it.
you.
I get it. Yeah, but you're very needed. I think that's what all the panelists are saying is that fabricators, people who know how to stone set, this is a needed skill, needed profession. And it can equal a really satisfying and incredible career, right? I mean, but then David, you said on the phone with me too, not everyone can sit at the bench for 40 years. It takes a certain type of professional, a certain type of person.
I think there's no one in this room that is thinking that they could do that.
Okay.
I can guarantee you that there are a few of you that will love that.
Yeah.
Statistically, this will happen. Some of you will just love that work, love that job, right? However, there is so much you can learn just by doing it for 2 years.
Yeah.
Being in an environment with deadlines, an environment where you need to learn. I'm assuming some of you don't even know the difference between marketing and merchandising and advertising. I didn't know. It's not clear if I know today, right? But my point is, joining a company, joining the industry before you start making strides on your own, if this is your call. My point is that if you don't know anything and you make strides on your own, you didn't choose to make the strides on your own. You just went for it because you knew nothing else. Or you thought there was nothing else out there. If you join a company, even for a year, 2, 3 years, doesn't matter, whatever you feel like. First of all, you may discover that what you wanted all along was to be in the industry, but not necessarily designing. Or maybe you wanted to be in the industry, but not necessarily at the bench, not necessarily doing a CAD design. Because if you do CAD design for 3 years, maybe you're like, I don't like this anymore. But I do love the industry, and I love the storytelling of jewelry, and this is what actually matters to me, is how do we tell a story around jewelry, right? So my point is that allow yourself to choose where you want to go to. Don't be like me when you stumble onto something. Right? I was lucky to stumble into this industry, as I said before. But you don't have to stumble into your career.
You can choose.
You can choose it, but to choose, you need to have education. And education is more than, I know we're within Pratt, but it's more than just school. Education is throughout your entire life. I learn every day from the people around me, from the people on this panel today. I would learn something. And I think that's the case. The more you know, the more you learn, the more you choose your path. And that's something that I encourage you to go in the places that you believe will be uncomfortable for you. They don't have to be, because it's people that make you uncomfortable, not places, right?
That's a good point. Thank you so much. Brecken, you and I have a very unique view of the industry as trade reporters. I'm not a trade reporter anymore, but I was, and you were too, and you still are, also a gemologist. What do you hear and what do you understand about the jewelry industry and kind of what it's lacking career-wise? Or, sub-question, where do you see people being really satisfied and happy? What roles?
Oh, that's a great question.
Oh,
I
thanks.
mean, from what I hear, sorry to jump on you guys, but it is in the maker space. I would say, I'll be curious though if that's trending in a different direction, because for the past 2 years, I've been at a summer conference here in New York where there were people talking about the jewelry making classes. They had seen an increase in people signing up for them, as well as an increase in like making tools from one of the biggest suppliers for the schools. And not even college level. There are more high schoolers that are getting into it, and high schoolers that are trying to focus on that. So I'm hoping that we're seeing a trend in the other direction, but we'll see. As for the greatest satisfaction, that's really interesting, but I want to throw some love to my gem people, because I think that one of the reasons I was so attracted, when I was at my first publication, National Jeweler, it was a more all-encompassing look. So I got a lot of exposure to a lot of different levels of the supply chain, which was excellent. But one of the reasons I loved colored stones so much was because, I mean this in the best way, but the people are so nerdy. They can talk about colored stone treatments for hours, and there are whole conferences just about a stone treatment or the research that's being done on the ground. And so I find that sector is just, you have to be passionate to study, a handful of stones for months on end, and then turning out these research papers in GIA's G&G. So I just love that sector so much.
So
I love
cool.
those people. Yeah.
And I feel like gemology careers can be incredibly satisfying, right? And it is sort of that merging of science and beauty
Right.
that I think is not present in most careers on the planet. You know?
Yeah, 100%. You can sit around and talk about, oh, you know, this stone should be priced more than this stone because it has these factors so specifically. But then sometimes a stone just speaks to a person and it's just beautiful. And, you know, there's that magic that comes with it too, combined with like, when you get farther into the supply chain and you start understanding what it takes for these stones to be mined and how many hands it has to go through, you just really start to appreciate it in such a different way, I think, even beyond just seeing it set in a beautiful piece of jewelry.
Totally. Brecken, what can you do with a gemology degree?
Oh my gosh, so much. Our biggest actually readership is for jewelry appraisers, independent appraisers, which I think is so interesting. But you can also work at a gem lab, of course. You can be a wholesaler. You can work at an auction house. There's lots of, you know, beyond even just the big ones, I think. Consider a smaller house. They tend to get a lot of really interesting pieces still that aren't quite as, maybe they don't have the historical provenance, but they do a lot of really cool sales really often. And I get the impression that you would get a lot more hands-on with the pieces themselves. Because I think the auction market is fascinating when it comes to the gem and jewelry world. There's
Those
really
jobs
so much
seem
to do
very
there.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. Jennifer, thank you so much for being here. Can you, before you came, everyone sort of introduced themselves and said what they did. Can you do that for me?
Good morning. Thank you all for having me. I'm very sorry that I was late. So my name is Jennifer Gandia, and I am a co-owner of Greenwich St Jewelers, and we are a second-generation fine jewelry retailer. We have a store located in Tribeca, and we also have, you know, a website and e-com business.
Incredibly influential store, Greenwich St Jewelers.
Thank you. So that's who I am and what I do.
Yeah, and then tell us where you're seeing sort of the white spaces in the market for people looking for jobs within the industry. And retail is obviously your specialty, but I know that you are knowledgeable about kind of all facets.
Yeah, I mean, our store is interesting. Our company is interesting because we have a full shop in our store where we do employ jewelers and manufacture right in our space, as well as work with exterior manufacturers for some of our pieces. We also do service work, which not a lot of jewelers do on premise any longer. So repairs, restorations of antique pieces, restyling, full custom. And then we have the store itself where we sell wedding jewelry as well as somewhere between, it's always changing, but maybe 30 to 35 independent designer brands, as well as 5 of our own collections. So it's, you know, there's a lot happening in the building, and we do employ gemologists. Some of our salespeople are gemologists. Our production director is a gemologist. So we have all these different departments, right? We have production, which encompasses, you know, a team that is tasked with, we've got our director, obviously, that sits on top and guides everything and we do gem sourcing. You know, there's a production coordinator, for example, who's coordinating all the work that's coming in and out. We've got our 2 jewelers. One is a master jeweler, one's a bench jeweler. I concur with everything that was already said about, you know, working on the bench and having that innate talent can really get you far, and also working on the bench for a little while and then deciding to do something else. We've had people do that as well, go from the bench into production. And then we've got a full marketing department. I came from a marketing background. I went to FIT for marketing, did not plan to go into the family business at all. It was started by our parents, and kind of fell into it as well. And you know, I think there's something to be said for those moments of serendipity where you do find yourself someplace that maybe you might not have chosen for yourself, because I don't think I would have chosen, I had no plans. I was not interested to go into jewelry. I wanted to be in a fashion career. I wanted, you know, the big New York fashion life. And then I did that and realized, oh wow, this actually isn't that fulfilling. And went to work for my parents for a time during a difficult time. It was during 9/11, and really fell in love with all of the things that I didn't understand about jewelry, that I didn't know yet. So, you know, I think that there's an argument for both, you know, for knowing what you want to do, or at least having a plan. I certainly had a plan about getting into a certain industry, and then here I am, 20 years later. So I really lead up the marketing and web departments. So there's work in social media in my company. There's work in marketing and digital. You know, then we have a full, robust sales team. And my sales team come from so many different walks of life and have gotten to sales different ways. Some of them started out as independent designers, then realized how much they love working with people, and, you know, got their GG, and, you know, now work with us where they can do custom at the counter with people. So, you know, that's also another job that's maybe doesn't sound as sexy to some people, but, you know, my salespeople make really good money, and they get to work with people, and they get to work with beautiful jewelry, and to, you know, work on very many different aspects of jewelry within their role. Like I said, from custom to restyling, taking heirloom pieces and working with people that, you know, things have a lot of sentiment, and really being able to make a client. There's nothing like making a client happy about an older piece of jewelry or something. You know, it could be so simple that you've repaired something that they couldn't wear that was, you know, their grandmother's or grandfather's, and they're just so grateful. Like, that is just the best feeling in the world. So it's just to say that there's, you know, so many roles within our industry that can touch a lot of different interests that you all might have. And that might change, your interests might change, you know, as you go along in life.
Thank you so much. That was a great answer. Jennifer, I feel like your team in particular is so tight. Like, I know Grace, I know some of the people who work for you, and they've worked for you for years, you and your sister Christina. What qualities, like personal qualities, do you look for when you're hiring? Because I think that's really important.
Yeah, I mean, you know, one of our like internal tenets is that we embody luxury without pretension, and that we want people to feel very comfortable when they come into our store. And the only way to really do that is for us to have a team that feels really comfortable with each other. So oftentimes, and I think this was already mentioned, you know, it's a person-to-person connection. You know, we're looking for people who are enthusiastic and passionate about what they do, that are open and curious and willing to learn. You know, people that enjoy working with others, that are interested in, you know, working on a team. Our jewelers, you know, are a little more solitary, and that's okay. You know, that's they can do that.
They chose that.
Yes. Yeah. So it comes down to culture, I think.
Yeah.
You know, there has to be what we, you know, perceive as a culture fit, and then matching that with skill. And I think most companies, at least at our size, I don't know how it is once you get to mid and, you know, large scale companies, but you know, bringing someone in is almost like bringing someone into your home, into your family, and like that's the team that's going to help create that feeling when the client walks through the door. You can't fake that. You know, you can't put that on. So it's really has to be built and nourished from within, and nurtured, I should say.
Great answer. Thank you so much. Mary, what's something important that you could tell students planning to enter the industry about the industry?
I think you can all hear from everyone's answers that it's so vast and so broad. And I went into it thinking that, you know, I'm going to be a designer goldsmith and that's me, I'm done. And the more you learn about it, and I would say don't go into it blinkered, always remain open to opportunities, because then nothing passes you by. It mightn't be something that you're planned for, but at least if you remain curious about the industry, you will continue to learn and grow and develop, even if it is as a designer. Right now, I think it's a really exciting time to be in the industry because of new technologies. I think I've forgotten the question. Because now I'm going, oh my God, I need them all to enter the industry. What do I need to impart on them?
Your answer was still good.
Your passion. No, that was a great answer, and that's part of it. And that's a huge part of it. We had talked earlier about kind of something that maybe you wouldn't know about the jewelry industry unless you were in it. And we talked about the example of that it's kind of one of the last commerce categories that is very family driven, and that that is peopled with so many family businesses. Jennifer's in a family business. And that as somebody moving around within the industry, you should know this, And Mary, you and I talked about how your reputation travels, especially
Yes.
in the New York industry, and how important that is. Can you talk about that?
Yes, the industry, even globally, it is a huge industry, but it's also very tight and very interconnected. And throughout your career, the best advice I can give is to always lead with integrity and respect, because the industry is really founded on trust. Trust is a huge part of our industry, and your reputation will follow you. So I would say always be mindful, always treat people with respect and integrity. You're extremely lucky in New York in that you have choice. So if you end up doing business with people you don't like, there are other options. In Ireland, there was one casting company, so it was, and they were lovely to deal with.
And if you messed it up, it
but
was over.
It was just like there was no alternatives. And build on community. There are so many organizations that you can join, and that they're there to support people in the industry. I'll do a quick plug for WJA, because we do
Women's Jewelry
Association. So it started as a women's organization.
Not only for women,
yeah,
though.
Yeah, but it started as a women because we were not allowed to join other clubs. So we made our own. But we welcome everybody to become a member, and students get free membership. So if it's something that you would like to try, I'm a big believer in anything you can get for free. But you will learn so much, you will meet so many interesting people, and a lot of the events are free to attend. I know a lot of other organizations have like mix and mingle events, and you'll find your own tribe, you'll find that community that sort of fuels your desire and you're aligned in your core values and beliefs. And when you do that, the industry is just the most magical place to be in.
I think that's so great. And I know we all know, all of us, and Mark and I, that the sort of webs of interconnectivity, relationships that are built within this industry are personally so valuable and professionally valuable as well. So great point. Brecken, what is something that's important for newbies in the industry to know about the industry?
I think I'm going to get a little inside baseball with this one, but I think that something people don't realize until they get in the industry, and maybe even then, is sort of the differences in supply chains between diamonds and colored stones. And I promise this is coming to a point, but when we talk about diamonds, as we know, you've got a handful of really big miners that can trace their diamonds from mine to market, so to speak. But when we talk about colored stones, in reality, 80 to 90% of colored gemstones are mined by ASM miners. So that is literally one person who is maybe in the middle of nowhere in Tanzania or Kenya with a pickaxe mining these stones. And the reason I bring this up is because I assume that as you guys really get into the industry, you will find that at most parts of the supply chain, I would guess, responsible sourcing is part of the conversation. And for whatever that means to people, I think it's really important. As you're getting going, I'm a very big proponent, and I'm biased, but I'm a very big proponent of, staying in touch with the trade news and the trade publications. There are 2 free ones that are daily, National Jeweler and JCK. Sign up for them, but sort of follow along, because I think the more you understand how it works from the earliest steps of the supply chain and where those stones are going, the easier it is for you to figure out what it means to you when you say responsible sourcing, like what you want to be looking for, what you want to ask people about, and what you really want to fight for when it comes to what you're including in your work later.
Such a good answer. Thank you. Yeah. David, one epic piece of advice for this audience.
Okay, so everyone was allowed to give a regular piece of advice, but mine needs to be epic.
Here's, from what you've laid down here today, I expect epic.
So I'm actually going to be super practical
Okay.
because I think the panel is amazing, but sometimes you can walk out of a panel like, okay, but what do I do now?
What do I do
right?
now?
So
Yeah.
I want to give you something practical that I think summarizes quite a lot of what we said. The industry is super vast, but at the end of the day, there's jobs in each location of that vastness. So what I'm telling you is like, go to LinkedIn, go and follow some of, actually go to LinkedIn, get yourself a nice picture and a nice profile and write about yourself, have a little story about yourself. And you already have a great story because you're in this room and you went to Pratt. I don't need to know much more to know that you have a great story to tell, right? Follow some of the companies in our industry, from the biggest one to the smallest ones to the institutions. I call them the 3 letters, and WJA is one of those amazing 3 letters, and there's great other 3 letters in our industry. Follow all of them, apply to any job they post, unless you have a real reason to know that this is not a job for you. And it could be something that is out of what you think is your path, because what I'm telling you is that the path that you have in your mind right now is a path you didn't choose yet. And not that you think you chose it because you don't know more than what you have right now. Learn more, and if this is still your path, amazing. You'll know how to tread it even better after you've learned something else. Go and learn something else. You can go into a supply chain department in our industry. For any retailer, big or small, we all need to take care of responsible sourcing. We need to understand industry player. I just came back from India and Thailand, and I learned so much in 5 days in India that I could learn in 5 years in New York, right? Go and be part of that trip. There was someone that was an entry-level merchant with us. Just imagine how much she learned during those 5 days in India. I had to wait 9 years to be able to get the budget to go to India, right? She was able to come with us. Go in merchandising and learn how jewelry is priced and how it's costed and how do we sell it and which customer is targeted with what, because this is at the end of the day. Not everyone buys the same things in the same demographics, the same areas, the same geographics, the same context. Go and learn merchandising. Go and learn marketing. You all have a story within you. You may not know yet how to package that story. Working for a marketing department at a retailer will teach you how storytelling is done, either in a good way, if you're in a good marketing department, but also maybe in a bad way. And you'll learn from that as well if you join a not so great retailer. I don't know where we stand, by the way, just to be clear. But my point is that there's a lot of opportunities out there. And there will be also opportunities out there, and I'm going to share about an opportunity that will happen next year at James Allen. We intend to choose one designer that knows nothing but design next year. Someone local, and we're going to give them all of the support.
Oh, wait, slow down. This is a really, really cool thing.
Okay.
Start at the beginning for this, because this is something that people in this room might be really interested in applying for.
Okay, so my point is that the opportunity I'm going to give you is not necessarily better than the other opportunities I just told you. But this is something that, in my opinion, is probably already in your path. Like, if I get something like this, I feel great about it. So it's great. But everything else that I just said about LinkedIn, like, don't dismiss it. This is just as important, could be just as important in the long run of your career. But next year, we're going to choose a young designer that knows nothing but design, and we're going to support them with storytelling and marketing and manufacturing and sourcing, and we'll put the money behind the manufacturing and the sourcing and the diamonds and the jewelry, right? And we're going to try to one designer. Yeah. And we're going to make a capsule collection in partnership with James Allen, with the manufacturing of James Allen, etc. We're going to send it out to all of our customers in email and social media, and that's a great opportunity. Just to be clear, I wish I was 21 years old right now to be able to apply for it. I would probably not get it. Just to be clear, I wouldn't be chosen for it because I'm not great at design. But my point is, when we make the decision of who is that designer that we intend to choose, that designer needs to understand who I am and who the people on the panel to select the designer will be. And if you don't know how to tell your story, you don't know how to package it, you don't know how to market yourself, which can be a scary word, you won't be selected probably, not because you're not good or you're not a good designer. It's just because we won't know that you're a good designer, right? And we won't know that you're not good, that you're good, right? So my point is that no matter what, skill sets are important. More than, besides craftsmanship, besides being who you are and being a wonderful designer, as I'm assuming some of you believe you are, you need to be able to tell your story and build your story, and this can come from more and more experiences all around. If you worked in any of our companies or institutions here, then you would know more how to do it better. right? And that's the practical advice. Go to LinkedIn, look for opportunities that are outside of the path, and do the best to understand what to do when there are opportunities that are within your path. There's not so many of them, but there are a few of those as well.
Right. And if you make jewelry, please do not have a private Instagram account or no Instagram account. Walking around New York City Jewelry Week, there occasionally I will chance upon a lovely, incredible collection that I can't tag on social media. And it doesn't make sense in this day and age. So that's my one little tiny piece of advice. Mary, you're going to have a more epic piece of advice for everybody.
Well, I kind of now want to apply for the James Allen design gig. I'm just like, ooh. That's a tough one to follow. I would say, again, to the LinkedIn point, if you see a role, that's really an employer's wish list. So if you're not meeting all of the criteria, don't dismiss it, because you could be the perfect person for them. They can always teach you the skills on the job. The other piece of advice I would say is immerse yourself in the industry, whether that's through organizations. A lot of organizations are nonprofits and they're always looking for people to volunteer on committees or to help out at events. They're great ways to network. And it is like an old business adage, network to get work, but it's really how our industry operates. And just to your previous point about the industry seems very closed, and it does, and if you don't have family in the industry, it can be a little harder to navigate, but just don't ever be afraid to knock on a door.
Just ask questions. Too.
Yeah, and it is the one industry where people, I have found anyway here, are so willing to help, they're so willing to guide, they want to pass on their skills and their knowledge. And never stop learning. You have an amazing foundation here at Pratt, but life is, be a lifelong learner. Stay curious about the industry, stay on top of trends. You have the most amazing resources. You have an encyclopedia in your pocket now, which is...
It's amazing.
It's great, yeah. And reach out to people. I've had people reach out to me on LinkedIn and I've met them for coffee because they're earlier in their career, and anyone in the industry is exceptionally supportive, so don't be shy.
It's a kind industry.
It
right?
is. It can be
Yeah.
exceptionally kind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I agree. Unlike maybe fashion, I feel having covered both. Would you agree?
Yes.
Yeah. Tell me, Jennifer, what is your one piece of advice for this young audience?
There's been so much good stuff covered. I think that spending time getting to know yourself is also really important. Knowing how you learn, how you work. Do you like working with others? Are you good in a group project? Are you a leader? Do you know that you're a leader? Are you a follower? Also that's a great thing to know about oneself.
Yeah.
It's not a negative. Really having a sense of who you are is going to help you to also find environments that work for you, because it's not all about the employer, right? And what they're able to get from you. You have to know if that's going to be a good match for you as well. And to that end, if you do have the opportunity to interview for a role, my favorite interviews are when someone is like, yeah, I have a couple of questions, and either pull out their phone or pull out a pad, and I say, oh yeah, they've got questions. And I really love to see someone who is also qualifying us. So that's one thing that I would say. I also just I kind of missed my opportunity earlier, but I also want to put in a plug for Black and Jewelry Coalition, which is another incredible organization. It is a newer organization. Everyone is welcome. I sit on the board of advisors. And they do have, I believe, a student membership, which is quite affordable. And it's a broad-reaching organization that really aims to help promote Black professionals in the jewelry, watch, and gem industry. So it's just good to know that there are, other organizations out there for you as well. Are there any other trade organizations that we can mention that people can join at this stage in their career?
A lot of them are exceptionally exclusive. Like the 24
then no.
Carat Club, you have to be nominated.
Yes, no.
I've never been inside the door. Still
neither.
waiting for that nomination. But BIJC are an amazing organization, and they have just opened a school, like that jewelry program out in Long Island, which is what we really need to have new talent from a young age be exposed to the industry and know that it's an option.
Yeah, and like, don't forget, you're actually very qualified to talk to younger people in your life or that you may be in community with about careers, studies in the arts. I don't know exactly what each one of you is studying or where you'll end up, but we all are responsible for sharing the message of what like a next step could look like for someone younger in our lives.
Great point. Thank you. Brecken, last question.
What
What is your big piece of advice?
Well, I hate to group too much with what they were saying, but I think when I think back to what made the biggest difference to me at the start was the networking. And that was maybe because it's not my natural inclination to like go to an event alone. I'm not a naturally extroverted person, but it did make the biggest difference to me in terms of putting my face in front of people and telling them about what I did and sort of building that trust for them to come to me with stories. And I think, you know, when you talk about finding the stories, like what we should be writing about in the industry, it's rarely the press releases that are sent out, you know. Those are maybe a little bit more obvious, or you know that other trade publications are going to be covering it. So, but the amount of stories that have come out of just conversations at a bar after a trade show are monumental. And so I think just forcing myself into these things from an early start, and I always think back to my first Tucson, I don't know if you guys know about the Tucson Gem Shows. Yes, you're all nodding, great. I went to the first Tucson Gem Show 3 months into being in the industry, and it was that situation of not knowing what I didn't know, so I didn't even know what to talk to people about. So I got one invite to an event with a cutter, and I don't know how he got my name, and I went, and we were having a conversation about a gemstone, and I wrote an article about it. And during that interview, 2 months later, he said, we're going to Tanzania and Kenya in 2 months. I think you should come. And I was like, yeah, okay. And that was such a pivotal moment for me in terms of growing myself as a journalist. So I think to build on what they said, it really is an industry of relationships and building a trust and having your face out there. So go to as many events as you can.
What? You want to add something? Yeah, Jennifer.
Go to stores, touch jewelry, put
Great
it on,
point. Yep.
look at the stones, go to Majuri, go to Bloomingdale's, come to our store, walk into a Tiffany, look at the jewelry, touch it, feel it, get a sense of what lights you up, because that is the intangible thing about jewelry, is that there are going to be things that make your heart flutter and your stomach drop, whether it's for just being, you know, so rare or unique, or just because you are really fucking into it. So go learn what that is. There's little stores on the Lower East Side you can go visit, or in Chinatown. But if you think you want to get into jewelry, go out and play with jewelry. You're certainly welcome to come into our store anytime.
One more little thing, yeah.
I'm going to add exactly to that. Is that I mentioned before that it can be sometimes easy, especially for someone like me, but anyone working in a company, to sometimes lose track of the emotion of the product that is embedded within the product we sell. One of the places I go to besides retailer is actually I go to the museum. My daughter, I live in the Upper East Side. My daughter loves to go to the Met, and there's the Egyptian section there. And when you walk around, you see jewelry from 3,000 years ago. So first of all, gives me a sense of job security. Like if jewelry's been here for 3,000 years,
It's not going away.
It's not going away. So you chose a great industry in that sense. But like really, there's something about it. Like there's a reason that what we find from people 3,000 years ago is their jewelry pieces, right?
Such a good point.
There's a reason when in Titanic, the old lady is all about her necklace, right? I'm only half joking, right?
Right.
So yes, go to stores, but there's 3,000 years of jewelry, right?
Great
And you
point.
can connect with that as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your smarts and for your passion for this industry and for sharing it with us and with these students. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. We told you that we shot high with this panel, and we're so thrilled that they showed up, and you guys were all fantastic, and hopefully take what you learned today and go run with it. One quick note, Jewelers Mutual is, we're exploring the idea of a campaign, spending money on a national campaign to try and get young people into the jewelry industry. And so if you are up for it and would like to, we have a camera set up outside, and we'd love to get you on I wanted to say film, but I'm dating myself. We'd love to get you on video for 30 seconds answering one question, and that is, why are you excited to be in jewelry? And then we will take those and turn them into a TikTok campaign and run it nationally. So there are release forms for you to sign. Again, be right out there. And then I just want to end, because you all touched on so many great points, and the whole time I'm nodding, because I too was bumped into this industry, not by choice, and thought I'd be out in a week. I was like, I'm out of here. And then I went to my first industry event, and everybody wanted to know me, and everybody cared, and I was like, oh, I like this world, and that was 20 years ago. I love that we touched on emotion. That's the secret sauce of this industry. You know, nobody cried when they inherited their grandmother's cell phone. There's something about a physical object with an emotional connection that's just completely unique to jewelry. So that's wonderful. Networking is also, like, this industry is so kind, it's so warm, it's so welcoming, and there's endless opportunities for networking, whether it's through the Black and Jewelry Coalition or Women's Jewelry Association, or I even think the American Gem Society or AGTA for colored stones. You'll learn about these organizations as you go along. Doors are open, enthusiasm is welcomed, et cetera, et cetera. So again, thank you all so much, and thank you all for joining us today. You know, I want to keep track from you. Sure, that's is okay? Okay, well, so yeah, we have 10 minutes of questions.
Yeah.
Wanna do
Does
that?
anybody have questions? Yeah, please do. Yeah.
Don't be shy.
In the meantime, I'm going to put down people's handles for Instagram.
Use the microphone because we're recording and it helps pick up the sound.
Hi. Hello. Thank you so much for this wonderful panel. Can you think of any specific moments that made you realize that you just fell in love with jewelry?
So and this was probably a sign a long time ago, as a kid, Santa brought me a jewelry making kit, and I still have photos of my sister with all of these like flower earrings, and it's one of the first things that I started to make. But as soon as I started working with metal, I had those butterflies, and it's just something in the core of your being that just resonates with you, where you know this is your path. So I think it's just something that you feel deep within. And just touching on the emotion, I think as well, it is the stories of the industry. But definitely, and I still remember the joy of making those like paper flower pieces of jewelry. So it stuck with me.
I would say that the minute I knew I was going to stay was having that personal connection with someone at the counter. There are so many moments. I remember in my first year of working at the store, maybe it was my second or third year, early on, a young woman came in to buy herself a pair of earrings because she had just passed the bar. And I was just so proud of her. And she was buying herself she bought herself diamond studs, and they were not small. Like for me at the time, I was like, I just sold a 1 carat total weight, like, woo! It just was like such an incredible moment, that she was treating herself to this thing and had accomplished. And there are just so many stories like that. And just knowing how special jewelry is, the value is, it really, a big part of the value of jewelry is emotional and is about connection.
Awesome.
I was wondering, as somebody who is very intimidated by the business side of things, like, what would you recommend, like, researching or practicing when, like, thinking about the business side of things, when a lot of the times, like, in school, we're so focused on design and, like, the craftsmanship of everything? Like, how can we, like, dip our toes in the water in a not super intimidating way, I guess is my question.
So I'm gonna take the question, if you guys don't mind. I think I think the reason can seem intimidating. Like, I remember when I was younger, the word networking in and of itself freaked me out.
Yeah.
Like, what the heck is that? Like, what is networking? Like, where's and I think if you reduce everything, when you simmer down networking or you simmer down merchandising or marketing, at the end of the day, this is just people, right? It's just people. Whether this is something I remind myself all the time. My wife, I'm just sharing you a very short personal story. My wife had to change jobs very recently, and she was so freaked out about making sure she was making a few demands about work-life balance. And remember, you're talking to people. People want to connect. So that's the one advice I will tell you. By the way, this is networking. If you come to me after this panel and you talk to me for 5 seconds, we just networked. That's like demystify the entire thing, whether it's work, merchandising, titles, networking, whatever those words are, at the end of the day, it's all people. And you connect with people just like you would connect with anyone in your life that you connected up until now. Like, if you talk to me about my daughter, that's it, you're my best friend forever. I can talk about my daughter. We can talk about my daughter. I can talk about my daughter for 5 years, right? No problem. So my point is that find something to connect with. We always have something to connect on. And then get into business, then get into what you're trying to achieve. Try to learn who the person is in front of you. That's the best advice I can give you. It's all made of people. And in our industry, and I don't know others, but in our industry, you feel people, for good or for bad. There will be people saying, hey, this is just not the person for me, and that's great. It's a great thing to learn how to do as well. And you'll find that there are people that are for you. And that's what I'm trying to say, is that when you interview for a job, they're interviewing you, but you're interviewing them at the people level. At the people level, right? So know yourself, I think, was such a great advice, because how can you know others until you know yourself? And I think you spent probably most of your life learning about yourself, and you will still. But open yourself to learning about others. And then others sometimes work in departments and in groups and in companies and organizations. But it's all people at the end of the day.
Can I ask a clarifying question? What do you mean when you say business?
I mean money, to be honest.
I had a feeling you meant numbers.
I mean numbers.
Yeah. I'm not a numbers person myself, and I had to do extra credit work. I had to learn, I had to take accounting courses when I first was like, okay, I'm going to do this, like I'm going to stay here. I took accounting courses. I had to learn how to interact with numbers, how to create a budget. And I also think your question is a great point for Pratt to listen to about, providing business courses if they don't exist. I don't know. Great. Take that. Okay. Well, but I mean, YouTube University, right? Like, I mean, is the best. So, but figure out what you're not good at. I'm not a numbers person. I'm a visual creative, and I'm, and try to learn it somewhere else so that you do feel a little more comfortable. I still don't feel 100% comfortable. I have people in my company that do a lot better job than I do, but I did have to learn when it was just me, my mother, and my father.
Could I just add to that point as well? Because I was in your exact same situation. When I opened my business, I had no business background. I had no idea what I was doing. I just had this harebrained idea, I really want my own little store, my own little workshop, and it was all really romantic. And then, I forgot that you have to pay everybody else before you pay yourself. So I went back to night school and I did a business studies program just to understand the basics. And I think you can outsource it, but if you don't understand it, you don't know that person's doing a really good job. And when you I'm all about education. When you learn about something, it becomes less intimidating because there's no mystery anymore. It doesn't mean you have to become an expert, but once you have that foundational knowledge, it takes the fear factor out of it.
Thank you, guys.
Anybody else have any questions in the back?
Um,
Oh, here, yeah.
okay, some of you might find difficult understanding my accent, but it is what it is. So I am from Ghana, and being in the United States, I mean, sometimes I go on the internet, search for jobs in the jewelry industry, and when I search, sometimes I see master fine jeweler, which is like 5 years experience. And looking at myself, I've been a bench jeweler for 3 years. I mean, I've managed shops, and I'm like, I can do what that person can do, but I don't have 5 years experience. I have like 3 years experience. So thinking about all this, do I just throw in my applications and see what?
Absolutely. That's another, thank you for bringing this up. That's another piece of advice. Be audacious. Don't always listen to the rules. Absolutely apply. And Mary will tell you why. And actually, David talked about it also.
Yeah, it is. It's a wish list. I've gotten jobs, and there are certain things listed, and I have no experience in it, but what I can bring to the table speaks of itself. And there are certain skill sets that you can learn, and sometimes companies or businesses want you to learn their way of doing it. So I would always, I'm a big believer in taking opportunities. There's someone I want to connect you with as well, so let's talk afterwards.
When I got the job as senior editor at JCK Magazine, where I was for a decade, I emailed, I followed up, I heard nothing. I found the HR person, I called her, I left her a message. 2 weeks passed. I emailed her twice more, and finally she was like, okay, let's do an interview. And I got the job and stayed there for 10 years. So I think it's okay to be aggressive, you know?
Especially if you know you're good. And you can say that, you know, you can say that too. You send in a cover letter with your resume, talking about what you've done. And you know, I get so few cover letters these days. It's just like an avalanche of resumes.
few cover letters.
Oh my gosh,
And you
maybe
want
one
them.
in 100. You know, I mean, I want to know, it would be nice to know why you're applying for the job, especially if you don't match the wish list in a substantive way. You know, tell me what's going on.
Yeah.
Are you just, you know, blanketing? Or do
Yeah.
you really think that there's a reason why you should be considered for this role? And certainly something like time in the role, for sure, if you match and it's just about time, and you know that you're good and you've managed, tell me all of that in your cover letter, or at least give me, you don't have to give me everything, but at least give me something as to why you're applying.
And some knowledge that they know what they're applying for.
Too, right.
Right. It's not just like, oh, whatever, it's another job. Like
Yeah.
you say, I was in your store last month. I really appreciate how you guys do this, this, and this.
I mean, that's great, but even if
Yeah.
you don't do that, it's nice.
Something.
Yeah, it's nice to know, you know, listen, like I said, especially if you're a little outside of what the job is asking for, what the job description is. And there's a reason why you're applying. You feel for some reason, maybe it's just a gut instinct or whatever, that this is a job that you really could be good at. Fight for yourself, you know, tell me why.
And I would say as well, if you apply and you're not successful, reach out to the HR or recruiter and ask them, is there any specific reasons? Because you can also use it as a learning experience, because what you might feel they didn't choose you as the candidate for mightn't actually be the reality. So I am a big advocate for following up, because it's a growth opportunity.
Great. Anybody else? Okay. Two more, perfect.
So going back to Leela's question, in your opinion, you do think taking maybe entrepreneurship classes or courses or having a minor in that will help you be more well-rounded in the industry?
I
Correct.
strongly believe in it. My business wouldn't have been successful in Ireland without it. And it gave me a lot of confidence in myself as a business person, because I have a lot of confidence in my creativity and my skills as a jeweler, but I always felt really uncomfortable in the business world, and it was from a lack of exposure and a lack of knowledge. And through learning more and more about business, I ended up in Ireland. I went on our version of Shark Tank. And starting out, I would have bet serious money on I would never do that. So I surprised myself by doing it, but I think it's because I kept I did get an accountant because I wasn't that confident. But definitely it's a huge advantage because at the end of the day, it is a business. And if you're in business, you still have rent to pay. So it's like money is still a driving factor to some degree. So you really do need to understand the business background.
I'm going to add to that. I think it's not necessarily, I agree, education, and I think we've all said that educate yourself is important. Now, it could be formal and you can have a minor in business, but it can also be just go and read a book about business, such as, like, I love those books, like, like Real Estate for Dummies, and like, if you buy that book, you're actually not a dummy. That's what it says about you, right? Go buy Retail for Dummies, go buy Marketing for Dummies if you intend to interview for marketing departments. By the way, read it in diagonal. Don't read every single page, but watch YouTube. Watch a 2 hours YouTube about Ask ChatGPT. Like, don't even read books anymore. Like, just like, but you know what I mean? Like, you can education is literally at your fingertips today. Yeah. It is so easy to learn things. Like, I mean, so even just like ChatGPT can help you learn so much about ask, hey, ChatGPT, what a marketing department at James Allen typically would be concerned with. It will give you a full answer, exactly what your interviewer wants to hear from you. Like, exactly. You need to understand the answer, though, right? So education is still something you need to make an effort for. But it was never easier to learn and educate yourself before you go and prepare for an interview or a panel like this one, for me learning about my fellow panelists or things like that. Nothing is easier today than learning something.
Very cool. Yeah, last question.
Hi, my name is Lila. I had a question for Jennifer about the organization. What was the name to it again?
Are you referring to Black and Jewelry Coalition?
I am.
Yes. So that is an organization that was created, I think, in the aftermath of 2020. So I'm not sure if the organization came to existence in 2021. And its whole mission is to forward and advance Black professionals in the jewelry, gem, and watch industries. And they have different memberships at different levels, events. It's still a growing organization, and they're finding their footing. But they have done some incredible programming with future jewelers and education. Actually, they're having their big fundraiser tonight, which probably a lot of us on this panel are going to. So I would definitely look into it because there is a student membership as well, and they have all kinds of programs for different types of people in the industry. They currently have something going with Jewelers of America that is for people in retail that want to advance their careers in retail. So have a look. They're really wonderful.
Really wonderful. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. If you're interested in being put on tape.
Emily.
We would be so appreciative, and we would love it. We want to know what you guys are thinking and why you're interested in jewelry. Come up and meet us. And otherwise, thank you
Emily,
so much for attending.
Very quickly, I'm so sorry because I didn't mention it. If you want to apply for the design capsule collection with James Allen, nothing is yet completely organized, so we don't have a way for you to apply. So what I would recommend you do, go to James Allen Rings on Instagram or find us on TikTok. Follow. We're going to post about it. Or find me on LinkedIn. You can put it back if you want.
Okay,
Find me on LinkedIn. We'll connect and we'll figure it out.
David Berdugo, Berdugo. Yeah, not V.